But both businesses that have been the most profitable for me have been based off of one next right step at a time, a whole lot of prayer, and a passion of mine that was just so particular to me.
Welcome to the Obsessed or Not Interested podcast. I am your host, Mindy Wenderquario, and I'm a small town go-to girl next door who is obsessed with helping others see more for themselves so they can thrive in all areas of life. I love researching all the things like wellness, mindset, relationships, you name it. If I'm obsessed with it, I get hyper-focused on it and I research the crap out of it, and then I share it with you. If those are things that you're also obsessed with, then keep listening and let's become new best friends. Okay, so hi, friend Joelle. Thank you for coming on the podcast. Welcome.
Oh my gosh, I'm super excited to be here. Our worlds have been interconnected for over a decade, and I feel so honored to be on Obsessed or Not Interested because not only do I produce it, but I am a big fan of all things Mindy Wender.
Yeah. Okay. So you guys, Joelle is my podcast producer, number one. But well, you guys know this podcast is only since October or November of 2023. Joelle and I go way, way back, and we got connected through fitness because we both started a business online in fitness. So let's just talk about your backstory a little bit. Let's take the listeners, tell us, well, first of all, she was like in college when I met her. And like I said, we were connected through fitness. But let's start before that. Tell the listeners a little bit backstory about you and how you got into that business where we found each other.
Yeah. So at the time I came into your world, I was a college student. But before that, I knew and was that girl that's like, when you asked her in high school, what was she going to be when she grew up? Like, I had a planned path. I was like, I'm going to go to this school. I'm going to study dietetics. I'm going to do my internship at this spot. And I was like, I have this plan and this is what I'm going to do. And so went to college, 21 years old, and I saw your sister Jackie posting on Facebook about how she was getting in shape, helping others, and earning an income. And that was right around my 21st birthday. And for about 2 months, I was watching her and seeing what you and her were doing. And I remember a specific YouTube video of you guys doing a shake tasting and a workout at a fitness studio that was in an upstairs place of somewhere. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I really just think I could do this. And as a college student, I was broke. I was working at a daycare. I didn't want to be a bartender or a waitress. And so I signed up to just help cover the cost of some groceries. And then it was really you and Jackie paving the way to me really seeing the potential in this opportunity because I'm a small town girl from Minnesota, and knowing your guys' story and knowing that your location wasn't your limitation was just huge for me. Absolutely huge. And it was a great partnership. And I know you've talked about this on your podcast before, where with Beachbody, I knew I was going to be a great fit for the company because I loved fitness and nutrition so much already. It was a planned path. And as God works, he does things. And I just was trying so hard to get into the planned path that I had, the dietetics program, the internships, and my business was growing. And I really saw how the business potential exceeded what I could ever achieve as a dietitian. Like, I could really actually help more people in their fitness and make it fun and enjoyable and not just see clients because they were diagnosed with diabetes and needed to start eating in a different way. And that's a lot of what a typical dietitian does before the online space blew up. And so that's when I really started, and Jackie had encouraged me to get on our weekly team calls. And they were just the one thing that I got on every week to learn from you and to get into your world. And so from there, your story paired with the personal growth that you were doing really has played a huge role and impact of me growing body to what it was, and now really honing in on what I'm doing with podcast production, because from you, I've learned goal setting, which I had Mindy come talk about on my podcast, Living in Sync. And that's really the start of what it all was early on in our network marketing days.
Yeah, and you know what it stands out about your story that you just shared that I want the listeners to think about is Joelle had a planned path, where in my story, as you guys know my story, I didn't. I was just kind of going through the motions of life. I was unhappy, all the things. But Joelle, you had a different story. You had it all planned out. So the thing I want to really highlight about what you said is sometimes it's okay to go down a new path. It doesn't always have to be in your plan exactly. You have to be open and like looking for opportunities and following what feels good, because this was something that really felt good. You were enjoying, there was community where the others, nothing bad about the other plan you had, but maybe it wouldn't bring you so much joy as this was. Now you could have been the person that's like, hey, oh well, peace out guys, I have a career, blah blah blah, I'm going after this, I have a plan. But you didn't. You followed what felt good to you. You followed what you were enjoying, and you followed what you saw was like, I'm watching the needle move here, guys. Like, I see the potential in this. I think that's amazing because a lot of people don't do that. So when you were going through that and as you were building and, having this vision, you started to grow your team and help thousands of other women with health and fitness and with starting a business and all that stuff. And you've always been so good at the tangible stuff, like teaching people the things and, all that kind of stuff. What were some challenges though, as you started getting into this career, this brand new thing that's not the plan? What were challenges that you had faced during that time?
Oh my gosh, really great question. I'm so glad we're talking about this, because not only are they challenges that I navigated then, but they're also challenges that you navigate at other times. And it just doesn't matter that, sometimes you're like, okay, well, here I am again. And one of those main challenges were not thinking things were growing fast enough. And I think it's even more emphasized today with social media, where people are sharing just in a reel that's maybe 15 seconds long, like, I went from this to this. And some are very great at communicating how, like, well, that was over a certain duration of time, because whether it's health and fitness or building a business or really developing quality friendships and relationships, things take time. And
Mm-hmm.
that's been something that's been on my heart to talk about a lot lately, is not trying to overly speed up time. And I listened to a podcast recently that has just left my mind lingering on thy will be done. And sometimes we pray like, thy will be done, like, God, give me something, do something for me. But God's will is being done in the mundane of what's going on in life today and the things that are right in front of us right now. And so in the beginning, it was like, oh, I wasn't hitting ranks as fast as other people, or I wasn't achieving higher ranks than other people. But I think what does work in my favor is I've always had a personality of celebrating others, even if
Mm-hmm.
they're like ahead or a few steps behind. I think that's honestly something I was given from my mom, because she's always celebrating other people and talking about the great things that other people are doing. But time was really one where it was like, oh, my business isn't growing as fast as theirs, and not feeling defeated of like, oh, they're better than me or they know more than me, mindset. And I know, like, I've learned a lot from you when it's come to mindset. That was another challenge that I had to really work at overcoming. And I want to just say that to you listening, like, mindset and being positive doesn't always come easy all of the time. It takes work. So you may be seeing people achieving certain things and you're like, oh, they just don't have to work through anxiety like me or depression like me. But They do. It's something we all really have to work at. I know you're a big fan of Dr. Amen, and he has his Taming the Dragons book. That is such a good book for mindset because he talks about automatic negative thoughts. And in that book, when he was like, everybody has automatic negative thoughts, I was like, it's
What?
not just me having these negative thoughts. So I think like comparison, time, and negative thoughts were my biggest challenges. And even 10 years later, I'm much better at working through those things because of the tools I've gotten in my toolbox. But those are still things where I'm like, eek, I'm still struggling on those a little bit.
Yeah, and there's something I want the listeners to really pay attention to what you just said. You don't also have to believe first of all, you're not alone. Everyone has these negative thoughts. And Dr. Amen says this a lot. You don't have to believe every thought that comes to mind. So
Mm-hmm.
something I struggled with in the beginning, and also it's a full-time job. Like it's not like all of a sudden you have a positive mindset and negative thoughts are gone for the rest of your life. It's a daily thing that we have to work on. And I know you know that. But I want the listeners to really pay attention that Joelle, just stop. You don't have to believe everything that comes up. You're going to still have the negative thoughts, but you don't have to believe them. You know what I mean? And you're not alone. I love that you shared all the challenges. I'm sure there's more, but I'm just the ones that you did really, I feel like they're very relatable because I know for me, I'll just be very blunt and honest with everybody. I right now I have this huge successful career, as do you, Joelle, with Beachbody, aka Body. And we both still do that. But it's okay if you want to do other things. And I want you to touch on this. It's following your passion. So, something that I started with Beachbody, and I really loved doing my team calls, like you were just talking about, Joelle. I love speaking life into people, speaking vision into people, helping people with their mindset, helping people with goal setting. And what I started to feel is that, and I would only share this information with people on my team, like Joelle. And what I started to sense, like, I'm gatekeeping. I want to open this up to be able to share with whoever, because some people just didn't want to join my team. They didn't want to be a part of Beachbody, but they still wanted to learn what I felt I had more to offer, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so I start this new career because I'm following my passion. I learned a lot from you in this sense, watching you from afar as you started a new journey we're going to get into. But it is so hard out there, guys.
It's
Watching
hard.
all, yeah, watching all these other people that even if they started after me and they're blowing up and whatever. But so I'm so glad you shared that because we have to remind ourselves when we have to put blinders on, stop comparing yourself, and also realize that we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know if that's even true, number one. And also, we don't know how long they've been doing it totally. They might be making things a little more, you know, grabbing your attention, like doing a hook to grab your attention. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And also, run your own race
Yeah.
because it doesn't, I mean, somebody could go viral. My podcast could get shared by Britney Spears, which I love Britney Spears
Shout
or
out,
Taylor
Brittany.
Swift. Hey, Brittany, if you're listening, can
It's
you please
so
share
funny
this?
you say that because anytime you hear the "It's Brittany," I'm like, "That's Mindy." And work, Brittany's song, like those are just the jams. Where I'm like, "Oh, it's Mindy's with me in the
Yeah.
car."
I used to play that song Work Beep. We'll bleep it out on our
Yeah,
team calls and stuff because I'm like
yeah.
such a Britney fan.
No,
Someday,
I'm so glad you're saying this though, because it can be so hard. And I got great advice from my best friend's mom. So shout out Lauren Ricks and her mom Sherry, because Lauren was talking to Sherry and she was talking about all the things that you were just kind of talking about. And her mom, Sherry, who's very wise, very into growth and spirituality, she goes, I have reinvented myself every decade of my life, like in my
wow.
20s. And so I think for so long, this goes back to the beginning of my story, I had the planned path, and it was hard for me to strip that identity I had in the planned path of what do you want to do after high school. It was hard for me to strip that away. And another lesson that happened because body became such a part of me and my heart, any thought of like reiterating myself in any way, shape, or form was really hard and I played around, or I did a lot of healing in the years of 2021 to 2022 about that, detaching my identity from what I did, because whether it was, if body wouldn't have been the thing, it would have been something else, right? Like
Mhm.
it was nothing to do with body specifically. It was like I had a pattern of attaching myself to what I did as an identity. And then
Yes.
when my friend's mom was like, I've reinvented myself every decade of my life, I was like, I'm in my 30s. It's about time. It's about damn time. Like, I'm supposed to evolve. And evolving doesn't mean throwing things out the window if you're driving in the car. It's meaning like you're putting another suitcase in because you're going on a trip that's further and farther and greater and grander, and you take those experiences with you. And so, to the listeners, kind of coming to the cohesiveness of the timeline, starting out in body, it was around 2011 to end of 2010 or end of 2011, and then building my business, in my body business, through becoming a mom, buying our first home, getting married, having our second. And then our second was born in 2018. I had traumatic, very high risk pregnancies. And the way that I got support and prayer from the Beachbody community during that time, like unmatched, unmatched. And then it was like 2020, we all went through something, but 2021, I was coming out the other side, and there were certain things lingering in my heart and soul and mind that I could not ignore. But because I had to work through that identity of this is what I said I was going to do and be and always, and I know Andrea Crowder talked about that a bit on the episodes you had with her. It was hard to even come to that point of doing something different. And it wasn't so magically, what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't such a smooth transfer, because in
Yeah.
the year 2021 to 2022, I was trying a lot of different things. I had made a lot of different courses. I was trying to get clients that were one-on-one. I tried launching a group coaching thing, and like, it was so frustrating. It was not working. And at the end of, or in the summer of 2022, I was listening to a podcast on a walk, and it said, like, if you could literally get paid doing something you're already doing, what would it be? And I was like, listening to podcasts. But I didn't do anything with that thought at the time. I was so ready at the end of 2022. I was so tired of struggling that I went to a job interview. There was a marketing position at a local tech company that I went to and had a wonderful interview. I really loved connecting with them. I was actually really excited. I really wanted to be chosen for the job. And I asked them the question of, what marketing strategy do you guys not have in place that you want to do? And they said podcasting. And
Wow.
unbeknownst to them, I've had my own podcast for years. I've pioneered the podcast industry. I've been obsessed with the podcast industry literally since Shillian Johnson started a podcast. Like,
Yeah.
I was so flabbergasted, and I was like, that is a skill that I have. I'm going to start just dabbling. I didn't jump off the deep end. And so it was the end of 2022. I had Andrea Crowder say, like, we're ready to have somebody manage this. Do you want to manage it? I had another friend who was wanting to launch a podcast, and I had another friend that wanted to rebrand the podcast. So January of 2023, I had 3 people to start working with to see, would I like any of this? Did I even enjoy it? Or do I just like doing my own podcasting? And what I found is I was like, I love the back end stuff of podcast production, like getting an audio that's just very enjoyable to listen to, optimizing the SEO, making titles that stand out, both for the people to click and listen to, but for the search engine to be working in its favor. So people who are podcast people are finding the podcast within the algorithm. 2023, I did this all behind the scenes. Like, I wasn't posting about it, I wasn't sharing about it. What I was doing was just serving my people well and taking care of them and seeing if I really liked it. I was not talking about this. And then at the end of 2023, I have a Dreamers Summit that's a faith-based, like, set up your goals for the new year thing that I do every year. And I was like, "Oh God, like I saw how you grew this because I was treating people and doing this with kind and careness and professionalism. I was passionate about it. I got referrals. So by the end of
Yes.
2023, I had a booked out podcast production business, and I was just like, okay, now it's really time to start positioning myself in this way. It was actually kind of funny in the beginning of 2024. I think it was, I did a post that actually talked about what I did, and people were like, "Oh, congratulations on your new adventure. I hope it goes well." And I was just kind of chuckling because I was like, well, it's already been going well, but thank you. Like, it was just kind of a little behind the scenes thing I did in 2023, which has led me into a mantra that has stuck with me, is God's way is greater than world's way. Because I've been in the online space for a long time. I've learned from all of the popular experts that are telling people how to build a business online. And I tried all of that, but then I know 2023 was all about working one step at a time with God's guidance. And then because I didn't have the grandiose plan, because I didn't have this plan I was sticking to, I couldn't take the credit for it. It was like I took one next right step, and literally the things that have been happening for this podcast production agency is like, this has got to be God, because I'm
Yes.
not doing the typical things. I'm not doing the typical routes and steps, but both businesses that have been the most profitable for me have been based off of one next right step at a time, a whole lot of prayer, and
Mhm.
a passion of mine that was just so particular to me. The first one being health, fitness, nutrition, the second one being like the behind the scenes of podcast production.
Okay, wait. Did you not know that we had podcast merch? Because we do. Yes, the Hyper Focus Journal is on there as well, but we have coffee mugs, travel mugs, sweatshirts, t shirts, cute hats, all the things. And also, it is just a great way to support the show. So if you are liking the show so far, please continue to share it, make sure you rate it. But also another great way to support the show is by getting merch. So head over to hyperfocusmentor.com, use the code OBSESSED at checkout for free shipping. Again, that's hyperfocusmentor.com. Use the code OBSESSED at checkout for free shipping, and you can get some today. Yeah. Wow. You said so many, like, welcome to Joelle's TED Talk. That's what I feel like. That was so good. I think we just have this idea in our heads that it's supposed to go a certain way. And it's because we're watching what everybody else is doing. But I love
Mhm.
that you're just like kind of just putting it out there to God. And I can relate to this a lot too, because, and I want to share this in case we'll see if you've experienced this as well. When you are starting down a new path, if it's network marketing, if it's digital marketing, if it's starting your own podcast production company like Joelle, have you ever gotten the point where you're like having a bad day? Hormones get in the way, girls. If you're a girl, listen to this. If sometimes you're just like, this isn't working. I'm not meant to do this. It's like you're on your period. Just
Yeah.
relax. It's
It's
gonna
like,
be okay.
seriously. And we talk about that a lot on my podcast, Living in Sync.
Yes, you have to follow her podcast for that. So, anyways, when I will get like a negative comment or like a thought in my head that I actually pay attention to that I just told you guys not to do, but I'll be like, maybe this isn't for me, or like, oh, my podcast isn't doing as well as I hoped it would, or whatever. And then all of a sudden, a God thing happens, and it's just like it gets shared randomly, and then it has like or somebody gives you a message. Those are like my favorite thing, when somebody sends me a message, a DM, and they're just like, Mindy, oh my gosh, I listened to your episode with Joelle and blah blah blah, and it's just like this testimony that it's like, this is a God nudge to keep going. I'm on the right path. I'm making a difference. I'm doing what I should be doing. Does that happen for you?
Yeah, and I'm the same way as what you talk about in working through negative thoughts. You just had an episode on that. Like don't let yourself go there so bad, and I know I'm the queen of spiral city, man. Like I let my mind spiral to like if there's like one little thing that gets brought up at my son's preschool and I start thinking about like how he's going to be a felon. No, I'm just kidding. That's like a very big exaggeration, but that's how crazy my
Oh,
whole mind can go. Like somebody can be like, "Oh, can you send me this file?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm the worst. How can I just not forget to put a file in a folder? You suck." Like my brain
yeah.
can so spiral on that. And while I think a lot of popular concepts say, like, yeah, don't let yourself go there, but sometimes letting yourself go there is okay, especially if you're working on the identity piece. Because I remember a moment of like laying in bed, feeling really down in the dumps of like how things have gone backwards. Like I was so stuck for a while on noticing how things were going backwards. And I was like, what a failure. Like, what a failure that I once was here and now I'm feeling like I'm here. And like in the context of backwards, I went backwards. And I was laying in bed and I was like, and what if it did just all get stripped away? And I thought to myself, I'd still have a great God working for anything to go in my favor. I would have a great husband and support
Mhm,
in that. And I would have great children. We would still
mhm.
be in our home. Like, you would be fine. And when I had that realization of like, oh, I've been thinking about the hairy, scary bear in the woods, but then when I actually started walking towards the woods, this hairy, scary bear that I thought it was just like an outline shadow of a slumped over tree. And it's
Yes.
not so sometimes it's not so scary when you face it on, right? And
Yes.
I've talked about that too with even just a couple girlfriends that are in their careers and they're, very high stress and all of that. And it's like, well, what if you just switched to a different company? And they think it's gonna be this big scary thing, and I've seen a handful of people, and when I mean, like, companies, like, my friends who are a nurse, they switch from a hospital to a clinic, and they're like, "Oh, this is actually way better. This is actually so much better for our family." But I
Right.
thought leaving something that I it's really the leaving something I had declared I was gonna do to, like, changing your mind is helpful in a sense, but always going back to God, because if we react on all of our emotions, I mean, I'd quit like everything. I'd quit my workout 20 minutes in. I'd start eating a bar of chocolate instead of my high protein meal, right? So it's not
Mhm.
making the decision in emotion, it's like grounding yourself and then really resonating like with God and being like, okay, is this an identity thing? Is this just an emotional thing? Like really looking at the hairy scary bear and where it's actually coming from.
Oh, 100%. And so you have to really have discernment is a good thing that you brought this up because you don't want to brush everything under the rug. What I do is if a feeling just keeps coming up and I know it's like a fear and
Yeah.
I will journal about it in my hyper focus journal and I will try to reframe it like you're saying like okay, here's the problem, here's the fear, what's the real truth, what's the
Mhm.
reality, exactly what you said. And then you can reframe how you look at that situation and look because we can go both ways in that same situation that you just explained. You can look at it in the complete negative way, like, oh, it's going to be so hard. I'm going to have to start all over. This, what if I don't like it? We can totally focus on that. Or we can focus on, this is where God wants me to go. God's been planting these seeds. I'm noticing the seeds that he's planting. I enjoy this. I love this. It wouldn't be so bad. I have my house, I have my family, I have my top priorities in line. I have everything that I need. And when you start to reframe that situation and just put it on paper, I swear to God, it's like peace comes over you. So I'm so happy that you shared that. Joelle, I'm just like obsessed with you, by the way. I feel like I want to just keep going and going and going because there's even realizations that I'm having as you're speaking, like the reinventing yourself. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, you know what I
I
mean?
know.
The
That was
reinventing.
Shout out Sherry.
Shout out to Sherry and Lauren. Yeah, I mean, it's just really good things to think about. So, the last thing I want to talk about, first of all, I just want you guys to hear what Joelle is saying is that can you see, even from the time when we met, when she was just a college student, right? We've known each other forever. And she followed her passion. Maybe that felt a little scary. Maybe she was going outside her comfort zone, but she continues to follow her passion. And she follows what she enjoys. She follows what she loves. She follows what God has laid out for her in the path in
Yeah.
front of her. But also, I just want to put this out there, and you can speak on this too. And then I have one more question. But Ed Milet said this on his podcast recently. Like, sometimes your work is going to be work. You're not going to love every single task that you do. You're not going to love every single thing you do. So when Joelle is saying, I followed my passion and like sunshine and daisies, there was, right. We're talking about with body and also with your new career, with podcast production and all the other things with your podcast. Is it all sunshine and daisies, or is there some challenges and things that you don't really love about every part of it?
Right. And as a solo entrepreneur where I'm in the handwork of the business and was even with body. And yeah, there were some times where, and a lot of times even now, where I'm like, oh, I just don't feel like it. But I
Mhm.
also know, and this is wisdom that has come from my 94-year-old grandmother, because she really emphasizes like being idle for too long is what is going to emphasize like your problems, and really progress is through action. And a
Yes.
lot of times now I'm trying really hard, and this is something I'm working through, haven't mastered, but when I'm in those moments in business, cuz yes, 100%, I'm trying to master like what can I learn from this? Like, and sometimes too it's like, do I feel better and do I feel accomplished when I've gone through and done something that I didn't feel like doing, and still it's not like I love every single aspect and element. Some days I sit down where I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I can't wait to listen to this." And sometimes I'm like, "I don't want to stare at my computer screen anymore." So I
Right.
have logged the evidence of like, sometimes I really love doing that and sometimes I don't. Like, I don't have to make it be this big drama in my head about what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? And I think
Right.
that's where the staying in idle instead of being in action, that's just gonna delay and have you questioning. So I would just say, I know God's way over world's way. And I know so many of the world is like, do what just feels good. And I'm with Ed Milet. I'm with Ed. I really am. Like
Hmm.
sometimes it's just not gonna be like, oh my gosh, do I wish I could sit out on my patio every day and not on a sunny day and just like not do anything sometimes. And sometimes I do log in those like breaks for a refresher, but I really think like that's part of the reason why in 2021 and 2022 there was so much mental and emotional struggle for me, is I was in a lot of idle instead of action.
Yes.
So
Oh,
whether it's action you feel like doing or you don't feel like doing, I think action over idle, it's gonna be key.
yeah. And do it now. That's something that Brian Tracy, a big fan of Brian Tracy, and he says in a lot of his books, do it now. Do it now. Stop putting it off, because putting it off gives you anxiety. Like you said,
Yeah.
action
Oh,
creates
yeah.
motivation. Yes. Oh yeah. Joelle and I are just like spiraling on anxiety of things that we put off. So don't be like us. But here's
Well,
another.
it's so funny. Mel Robbins talks about that in the 5-second rule too, where it's like I've thought about that so many times, even when it comes to like the kids' school stuff where it's like, oh, you gotta fill out this form or you gotta reply to this email. And I'm like, why have I been thinking about it for 3 days when literally it'd take me
Oh
3 minutes?
God. Literally, this just reminds me that I need to call the school about Hudson's T-ball.
Yeah.
Why am I putting it off, you guys?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Right when we're done recording, I'm calling, I promise. So yeah, doing it now though, it like reduces that anxiety. You get more done, you feel more accomplished, and it boosts your confidence. When you do things now and you're a doer, you literally will build your confidence within yourself, and you'll just have less, you just get peace and calmness. So
Mm-hmm.
I love that you shared that. I love that you shared that, because there's so many. I'm going to tell you right now. I want, if you tuned us out, I want you to turn up the volume in your car and listen. You're looking at people's highlight reels, and I know you hear this all the time. So let me just say it in a different way. There's people sharing like, "Oh, I made $70,000 this morning, and now I'm on a yacht. I did that in 2 hours." Guys, don't believe everything you see. Don't tell me that these people aren't working their butts off, creating all the content and doing all the things that they're selling. Like, there's a lot of work that goes into all the things. Don't believe every single reel that flies through your freaking swiping situation on Instagram, because you don't see all the truth. Okay. Okay, get inspired, don't compare. That's what I always say. And if you can't be inspired by it, don't follow the person, block them. And don't block
That's
Joelle
good.
and I, because we're very nice and relatable, and we hopefully will make other people that way. Okay. Okay, so last
If you don't
question.
like country music, you can block me. Like, I won't be offended because I
Okay.
will be your country music connoisseur or concierge. So, yeah.
Yeah, I actually really like, I'm okay if people don't like Taylor Swift, because I get it. Or Britney Spears. So I get it. I'm not going to tell you guys that, because I'd be blocked by a lot of people. Okay. I actually love Jesus music. See my shirt if you're watching on video. It says, "Thank you,
That's
Jesus." My
cute.
shirt says. Okay, so last question. Now I love and am so inspired by your story that you have literally followed your passion, because this is something that a lot of people want to do, but they have a hard time doing. So, what is some advice that you would give somebody who is sitting there idle, which they're not going to be idle anymore after hearing what you had to say? But what is some advice that you could give the listeners about following your passion?
Oh my gosh. Well, plugging you guys literally Mindy's system of goal setting, hyper focus journal. Doing that is what I learned from you in the early days of my network marketing. And so it was really about getting clear on what was important to me and then setting goals to challenge myself so I could grow. So I'm just point them back to you and what it is that you're doing. Like, learn Mindy's goal setting strategy, hyper focus journal, get your mindset right with her course, and then like fully go to God and watch him and leave room in your plan for him to work and to be like, there was no way I could have planned this as good as it has been. It's only God.
Yeah.
But I think like tangibly action steps after knowing all of that is truly if and I used to talk about this in an intentional time management course I did when I had like the little kids at home, still building body, and then also starting to build like my own brand courses. The Living in Sync podcast was new at that time. I did this strategy of like the power of threes. So I did my priorities. I knew my priorities. And then I would pick at least one, two, three things in that day to take care of. So when it came to being a mom of the little kids, and at that time it was like going on a walk, bringing them to the park. Then the next intentional priority at that time too was body. So it's checking into my group. Like I had at least 4 to 9 micro things. Like I'm talking micro things on my to-do list that served each bucket because at that time I didn't know if it was like I'm going to make massive goals with body because I had 2 little kids. Like capacity was really small, thinking beyond diapers at that point.
Mhm.
And so I really put my life into these buckets and I'm like, oh, these small steps. And then when it came to my own brand, for one day it might be record the podcast episode. The next day was like schedule the podcast episode. The next day was post about the podcast episode. That was over the course of like 3 to 4 days. Whereas I think we expect ourselves to do that one thing in 1 hour. And
Yeah.
as moms and busy schedules, and at that time I was going through like a lot of mental health and cloudiness of like, what am I doing and who am I anymore? And in that space and head place, I would say, keep your options open. I had those like 3 to 4-ish buckets, and then create micro steps. So then at the end of the day, when I put my head on the pillow, it was like, okay, I did my workout, I drank my water, and I had my shake. That was literally all effort I put into my own wellness at that time, because it was all I had capacity for. So it's like those three tangible things. And, same night, still put my head on the pillow. Oh, I've recorded a podcast episode for my own branding. Okay, I checked into my group and my team page. That was for the business. And then for home, it was like I took the kids to the park, we went on a walk, and then Sean and I are watching a show at the end of the night. Like that to me was like, I could only think in that scope of context at that time, because I didn't know I was going to have a podcast production business. I didn't know if I was going to be doing this or that or the other thing. I was kind of in this I don't know space. So is that helpful for what
Yeah.
you asked, where it's like, sometimes we can be in like the goal setting phase, and it feels like a lot of times when you're like, I don't know, like, do I really want to go in all in on this? It's like, I did not go all in on Beachbody actually when I started. This is a soapbox that's just coming through, but I'm going to say it. I didn't start Beachbody with the intention of going in and like forcing it to be something. It became something as I poured into it. Then when I went into like the 2021 to 2022 me, and I was trying to force things, nothing worked. But then with podcast production, it was once again just like a step in this direction that I was pouring into small steps at a time, with 3 people that were in my network that were willing to give me a chance to see if I like this, to see if I could be of service and helpful to them. And I didn't, in the beginning of what was like end of 2022, beginning of 2023, I didn't know that it was going to be here. And also, I have like a telescope vision of what I want the business to be, but I'm still very much operating in a microscope way. And if God told me to shut it down and do something different tomorrow, I think because of that evolution identity piece that I got from my friend's mom, I'd be okay with it. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't make it mean anything about me, you know?
Yeah, I think I struggled with that a lot, and I think I still have some work to do in that area too. It's just, and I'll be completely honest, is that if I set a goal and I achieve it, it's never enough. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then if I'm not, if I set a goal and don't hit it, then it's on me. Like I'm an I'm not good enough. I should have done this better. But even when I hit the top rank in the company and whatever, all of these huge goals, right? It was just like, oh, well, I could be better. I could be better. It was like never good enough. And I think it's because I attach my worth to my achievements. And I think that a lot of people can relate to that, maybe not, but
Yeah.
that is something that I'm definitely working on right now. I'm reading a book called Worthy by Jamie Kern Lima. Um,
Wonderful. Yeah.
yes, because it's just you're right. Like that's what I'm saying. It's like you talking to me today. It was just like such great reminders for what I'm already working on and going through. And I think a lot of people listening can relate to that because, it's scary to change. If you've been doing something else, it's scary, but it's like that isn't who you are. Like what you were
And you
doing.
can carry it with you. I think that's the thing too. That was the biggest realization, was it's like, it doesn't have to be I'm jumping off this deep end and saying, forget this and not doing that. My process was really, you know, talk about it sometimes as a big Thanksgiving plate, because life is so beautiful when it's bountiful and diverse and there's different things. If you had a Thanksgiving plate that was literally just half mashed potatoes and half turkey, like, you're going to get really sick of those flavors. But if
Yeah.
you have the mashed potatoes, gravy, turkey, the peas, the carrots, the dessert, little bit of the dessert, and everything else that comes with a vibrant life of having a lot of things on your plate, I personally have just found I feel happier when I have business and home life and kids sports and, going and meeting a friend for coffee. Like when life is bountiful and vibrant, I find for myself, I have a higher feeling. Whereas if I'm just putting too much emphasis on one area, it starts to feel way too heavy and way too thick and
Yeah.
in that identity piece.
Yeah, that's
So
so
bring
good.
all those things with you, man. Like they're all
Yeah.
coming along for the ride.
Yeah, for sure. And that, yeah, of course. And like for me, I'm still a body coach and I have a physical product and I'm mentoring and I have courses. You don't have to be just one thing. There can be
Mhm.
other parts of you. You can move outside your comfort zone and you're just a perfect example of that. I mean, I can't say enough good things about you, Joelle. Since day one, when we met and you were jumping on the team calls and then hanging out with you at events, I've always saw something really special in you and you have so many gifts, but just like you're just so real, kind-hearted, relatable, hardworking. I can't say enough good things about you. So Paul, this podcast was just money, 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 money. It was so good. I think it's going to help a lot of people because I think a lot of women right now are struggling with these things of what now, what next, what should I do? I want to start a business. I want to earn money online. And it's possible for you. I mean, Joelle is proof of that. Look at how many times, like she's reinvented herself. She was into fitness and well, first of all, you were had your whole life planned out after college. And then you switched to go to health and fitness in a network marketing company. And then you switched to, starting some digital courses and then starting your podcast, which by the way, you guys, you have to follow her podcast. I'm going to have Joelle share all the ways that you can follow her because I'm sure you're dying to know. But it just like now she's doing podcast production. It's like, look at all those different ways where she's listened to those little nudges from God and having discernment of what's next. And it doesn't, I think that you're right. Like a lot of things that you had said today has been like, you don't have to be, not in your words, I'm paraphrasing in my own words. You don't have to make this a over dramatic, guys. It's not like, oh, I
Yeah.
quit and I'm doing this and it's a solid line. I hate fitness. No,
Yeah.
doesn't have to be dramatic. So I mean, everything you shared today was just so good. I love you so much. When you speak, you just feel like this warm sense of like honesty and authenticity and like love. So I just really love you and I appreciate you coming on today. So before we move on and end this, I want everyone to know exactly like where to follow you, what you have to offer, your podcast, tell everybody all those things.
Yeah, you can follow, if you're a podcast person, which you guys are, you can follow my podcast, Living in Sync. I've got a great, really inspiring and encouraging series going on. Mindy was and is a speaker in that series where it's been really cool to talk to other people and ask the question of like, did you think you were going to be here? And everybody has said no. Spoiler alert. So Living in Sync is my podcast. You can come over to Instagram. It's now going to show and position me as a professional in the podcasting space. So my Instagram's going to be getting a little bit of a aesthetic revamp. But if you are looking into podcast production, you can inquire about that and see where I'm at with availability. But if you have a podcast and you're just really wanting an audit, somebody to come in and say like, what could I be doing better in my podcast without like the editing and production side, a consultation based service where I talk about, the insides, the outsides, the marketing strategy that you could put in place for your podcast to grow. You can also reach out to me on that. A website will be coming soon to inquire, but for now, hop on over to Instagram. It's just my name, Joelle Suess. It looks like Suess, Suess, but we'll leave that linked in the show notes.
Perfect. Thank you so much again, Joelle. This was so much fun. Seriously, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Obsessed or Not Interested podcast. I love connecting with you on social media. So if you guys want, please shoot me a DM at either our podcast Instagram, which is at Obsessed or Not Interested, or even my personal Instagram, which is at Mindy Wender. I check them both, so either is fine. Oh, and truly, if this has helped you even 1%, if you could do me a huge solid and leave me a rating and review, that would mean the world to me. When you guys do that, here's why I really love it. It's because it helps the podcast be able to reach more women who want and need this. So truly, that is like the best compliment you could ever give me, is just leaving ratings and reviews for this podcast. Anything that I talked about in today's episode, any links or resources, you will find that in the show notes. Thank you for listening to today. Can't wait to chat more in the DMs, and don't forget to tune in next Tuesday.